Hey everyone, welcome to Logan's Mosh Pit. Glad to have you here. Today we're going to do another episode of the Breaking Down Songs series, the place where we take a closer look at some of my favorite songs from all kinds of different bands and analyze the lyrics, because when we do that, we gain a deeper appreciation for the music we listen to. If there's a specific band you guys want me to talk about in a future episode of the Breaking Down Songs series, please drop a comment down below. I'll check your feedback. Today we're going to talk about the Sex Pistols. Even though the Sex Pistols weren't around for very long, they rapidly gained a sparkling reputation. Despite only having one album in their repertoire, the Sex Pistols had an absolutely monumental impact on punk rock music. Their only album is still widely considered to be a must-listen album, an album you have to listen to at least once all the way through in your lifetime. The Sex Pistols are part of the one-and-done bands. Those type of bands, in my opinion, conjure up some mystical properties. What I mean by that is, basically, those are the type of bands that leave you wanting more. They give you a tease of what to expect. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have your favorite food in front of you. You take the first bite, but then you're not allowed to eat the rest of it. That pretty much describes what one-and-done bands are like. They give you a small sample of songs. You can kind of get the idea of what they want you to hear. You can kind of tell what direction they're heading in, and all of a sudden, that's it. Everything stops. So, of course, the Sex Pistols only have one studio album, so I picked my favorite song, Faster Than a Barefoot Jackrabbit on a Hot Greasy Griddle, in the middle of August. The song I ended up going with was Holidays in the Sun. So that's the song we're going to talk about today. I'll put a link in the description to Holidays in the Sun if you want to listen to it after we decipher the lyrics. Go ahead. Before we do that, though, let's get into some background about the Sex Pistols' first album, their last album, their debut album, their only album, whatever you want to call it. All cases are correct. Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols was released back in 1977. It went platinum in the US and double platinum in the UK, where the Sex Pistols formed, the country they most represented. You had the singles Anarchy in the UK, God Save the Queen, Pretty Vacant, and, of course, Holidays in the Sun, the very last single off that album. So, this album raised some eyebrows when it came down. It rubbed some people the wrong way. Some people were offended by this album. Few people loved it. Most people were against this album. Over time, people grew to appreciate what the Sex Pistols meant. At the time, however, this album was very despised overall within the community. The reason for that was that the Sex Pistols were a pretty blunt group. They refused to bite their tongue on the state of the world around them. They wanted to make their feelings absolutely clear. Some people admired that. Most people despised it. So, this album comes across as overall an album that speaks its mind. Kind of the whole album gives you the vibes of, I care what happens, but I don't care if you disagree with me. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. I'm still gonna believe what I want. You're not gonna change my mind based on any argument. So that's what the album represented in a nutshell. So, a fun fact you might not know about Never Mind the Bollocks, that album. It inspired another famous album, Nevermind by Nirvana. Kurt Cobain was evidently incredibly inspired by the Sex Pistols, inspired enough to name Nevermind partially after the Sex Pistols album. The Sex Pistols and Nirvana actually had a lot in common. It made sense that they would share similarities. I can definitely see the resemblance between these two bands. They both wrote about similar topics. They inspired a movement that encouraged people to rise up and make changes for people who held the same values. So you could call this a passing of the torch, so to speak, if you want, from one band to another. Personally, I believe that the Sex Pistols' only album, Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, if nothing else, actually represents a brutally honest type of album. So now let's move on to figuring out what the lyrics mean from my favorite Sex Pistols song, Holidays in the Sun. We're going to go through section by section and decipher the lyrics, pull out the meanings. Before we do that, I want to throw out my usual disclaimer. This is just my interpretation of the lyrics. It's my opinion. My opinion might be different from yours. That's fine. We all hear these songs differently. There's no right or wrong answer. The song might mean something different to you. There are countless different ways to interpret lyrics, so let's respect each other's opinions. Keep an open mind. Okay, let's start off with the first section. The first section goes, I don't want a holiday in the sun. I want to go to the New Belsen. I want to see some history, because now I got a reasonable economy. First of all, this song feels like it easily could have transplanted Johnny Rotten, the lead singer, into the lyrics. Maybe he wrote about a past experience he had, or even something he dreamed of doing in the future. We'll never know. It could go either way. He just fit right in with the lyrics. So maybe it was about him. So either way, the person in the song has become tired of sitting around doing nothing. They don't feel like that accomplishes anything. Seems like a waste of time. So they want to leave their home, get out, see the world. They also want to be able to expand their mind and broaden their outlook on life by extracting different pieces from these various cultures, putting them all together, then applying them to their own life. Kind of get a breath of fresh air. That's the main goal they have. So let's move on to the next section. Section 2 goes, oh, now I got a reason, now I got a reason, now I got a reason, and I'm still waiting. Now I got a reason, now I got a reason to be waiting. The Berlin Wall. So the next section feels like it picked up right where the first section left off. Feels like the events of this song were arranged in chronological order, so easy to follow. The second section talks about how he finally discovered something that basically stopped him in his tracks, halted his momentum, stopped him from pursuing his ambitions. We find out that the Berlin Wall was standing in his way, blocking his path. There was no way to go around the wall, no way to go through the wall. The only way to get past the Berlin Wall would be to go over it. So he has a challenge facing him. Once he overcomes that challenge, he will be able to continue toward his destiny. So the third section goes, in sin surround sound in a 2-inch wall. I was waiting for the communist call. I didn't ask for sunshine and I got World War III. I'm looking over the wall and they're looking at me. So the third section highlights how differences often are the root cause of wars. One side holds a certain point of view, the other side holds an opposing point of view, so they fight against each other, trying to prove which one of them is right. This section also talks about how at some point, you have to face your fears. The only way out is through them. So the fourth section is exactly the same as the second section, so let's move on to the fifth section. The fifth section goes, "They're staring all night and they're staring all day. I had no reason to be here at all. And now I got a reason, it's no real reason, and I'm waiting at Berlin Wall." So this section basically implies that he wants to do something about the division between him and the people on the other side of the wall. He wants to change that, erase those differences. He knows that nothing will be able to change until he acts. You can't win a race by standing still. So you have this battle of wills going on, symbolized by the staring contest between him and the people on the other side of the wall. They're staring at each other. Makes you wonder which side will back down first, who will blink first, who will come out as the victor. So section 6 goes, "I gotta go over the Berlin Wall. I don't understand this bit at all. I'm gonna go over and over the Berlin Wall. I gotta go over the Berlin Wall. I'm gonna go over the Berlin Wall." So plenty of determination here. This section tells us that he's not sure what will happen next, but regardless of that, he's done waiting. He wants to take advantage of this opportunity. He must take the next step in his journey. Nothing will stop him. So, extremely confident attitude. The next section goes, "Claustrophobia, there's too much paranoia. There's too many closets I went in before, and now I got a reason, it's no real reason to be waiting at Berlin Wall." So, very different versus the last section. A shift in mood. This section, he starts having second thoughts about the mission. He went from nothing will stop me to maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe I should turn around and go home, do something else, leave this behind, forget about this. So, still trying to decide what he wants to do. Wrestling with his inner thoughts, trying to figure out what would be the right thing to do. So, the eighth and final section says, "I gotta go over the wall. I don't understand this bit at all. This third-rate B-movie show. Cheap dialogue, cheap essential scenery. I gotta go over the wall. I want to go over the Berlin Wall. Before me, come over the Berlin Wall. I don't understand this bit at all. I gotta go over the wall. I want to go over the Berlin Wall. I gotta go over the Berlin Wall. Before me, come over the Berlin Wall. I don't understand this bit at all. Please don't be waiting for me." So the final section of the song, he's made up his mind. He knows what he wants to do. He wants to go over the wall, conquer this wall in front of him. More for reasons of curiosity instead of bravery. Before he leaves to go over the Berlin Wall, he tells his comrades that they shouldn't feel sad if he doesn't return from his mission. They shouldn't feel guilty about not stopping him because he wanted to do this. He knew at all costs he had to go over the wall to find out what was on the other side, to try to make a difference. He was willing to face the consequences of his actions. So the song pretty much ends on a cliffhanger. We don't know what happened after he went over the wall and arrived on the other side. Who knows? So now let's move on to the mood of Holidays in the Sun. When you listen to this song, how does it make you feel? Well, this song will definitely get your adrenaline flowing. Like most Sex Pistols songs, this song will get you really stoked. And this one is no different. This song moves along at a blistering pace. You almost can't keep up with it, which I think reflects the youth of this band. The members of the Sex Pistols were in their 20s, so I believe this song was mainly targeted toward teenagers and young adults. That's who they felt the song would resonate with the most. So this song came across as a very no restraints, no boundaries type of song, just go for it mentality. So now let's move on to the most memorable line from the song. Well, I picked Now I Got a Reason. That line stood out the most to me, not just because it was repeated over and over again, mainly because this line tells us that motivation or reward will force you to care about a problem, make you feel unsatisfied if you sit on the sidelines, you want to take action. If you have enough motivation, or the reward will be worth the effort. So it also inspires you to act in order to benefit the greater good. So now let's move on to the themes that I pulled out of this song. One major thing is that young people often have a habit of doing reckless things, engaging in reckless behavior for the same reason as the person in the song. They want to satisfy their curiosity through experimentation. There's only one way to find out. The next theme that I noticed was the Berlin Wall. Of course, it was a real wall in the song. However, it can mean anything to you or me. The wall just symbolizes something that stands in your way, something you gotta conquer. Could be a challenge that you face in your relationships, your professional life, your friendships, something about yourself, basically anything. You can attach any kind of meaning to the Berlin Wall. Just know it's your enemy. You have to conquer it somehow, or cower in fear of it. So the last theme that I noticed was that, as I alluded to earlier, change requires some sort of action. So you should fight moving forward with confidence, knowing that you have the power to make a difference. So now let's move on to the strengths and weaknesses of this song. One strength would be the symmetry between Johnny Rotten's vocals and the instruments. Obviously, when you listen to a song, you want the vocals and the instruments to match. It would sound weird if the vocals were slow-paced and the instruments were blazing, or vice versa. Luckily, this song keeps consistency between every element. The next strength of the song would be the deafness of the lyrics. You know, from a band who has only one album under their belt, you would tend to expect the album to feature a lot of rambling, incoherent stuff all piled together. However, this song, and along with the rest of the album, actually seems pretty sane, pretty coherent. All the pieces fit together with each other. I believe that would have come more naturally as the band progressed further in their career, if they had the chance. So the last strength that I can pull from the song is that this song basically provides a voice to the voiceless, gives people who are afraid or unwilling to stand up for what they believe in something to fall back on, something that will inspire them to not stay silent anymore. I think the Sex Pistols were all about that. So let's move on to the weakness of this song. Like always, the weakness would be a petty one. Nothing major, just a minor annoyance, small inconvenience. So the only weakness that I noticed from this song was the incoherent structure. Not within the lyrics themselves, just the way the song was arranged as a whole. There was just so much info contained within this song. Feels like this song could have been split into 2, maybe even 3 different songs. There's so much crammed into a small space. Johnny Rotten tries to get you to follow along with what he says, but you struggle to keep up because he moves along at such a fast pace. You don't have time to let the message sink in. So that's the only minor gripe I have with the song. So finally, on a scale of 1 to 10, how replayable is this song? How often are you going to want to come back to Holidays in the Sun? Well, I would give it 10 out of 10. Mainly for the reason that I alluded to earlier. Like I mentioned, that one and done bands have a certain amount of attraction linked to them. Some people would argue that just because they have a handful of songs, then you grow tired of them very quickly. You finish listening to all those songs, then they become stale. You don't want to listen to them anymore. I actually think that having a smaller collection of songs allows you to become more attached to the songs. You quickly fall in love with those songs. You get a taste for what those songs mean. They make you feel passionate when you listen to them. You get attached to those songs because they offer a glimpse of what the band wanted to do. So that's the reason why I feel like the lack of songs could actually be an advantage. They mean more to you. Sex Pistols were not merely a band. They symbolized something more than that. They were a part of us too. Whether or not you agreed with what they said in their album was irrelevant. They continue to have such a massive following today because they stood for something far greater than themselves. They reminded us that big changes start with one person, you. So that does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Until then, rock on.